Hey, looks like we're live. Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday morning. It is MultiFamily Unplugged. If you are just joining us for the first time, I'm glad that you're here. If you are a regular listener, you know what to do. Go wake somebody up, stick a cup of coffee or some bacon and eggs in their hand, and get them to listen in with you. This morning, we're going to have some exciting information. We're going to talk finance. We're going to talk markets. We're going to talk a little bit about where we think the market's going to go. From a lending standpoint, from interest rates and everything else that's going on right now in today's market. So I think that we're going to cover a lot of ground. I want you to remember, please, if you would go and follow us. If you are watching us on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Wherever you get your social media fix, please like us and love us. And, there's always great content coming out. So watch for all of that. Also, a couple of things coming up this year. October, third week in October, I have my multifamily summit that'll be coming up. We're going to have 20 speakers from around the country. It'll be a blowout event again, just like we've done the last couple years. So we'll look forward to you being here. Watch for updated information coming out on that. Also in July, just a little plug, the Global GOB Network is having an event in Chicago. Will be a large networking live event, and look forward to having you there. Also watch for some discounted ticket information coming out here this week. So glad that you're here this morning. Hope that you can settle in and get the full effect of this morning's show. This morning, my guest is Joe Scorese. Joe and I met on Clubhouse. If you're not familiar with Clubhouse, you really should get on Clubhouse and sit in some of these rooms. Some of the content and some of the information that comes up on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, has just been phenomenal. I know I've learned a lot from people like my guest today and other people that I share and host rooms with. Mondays, we do a room at 2:00 Central Time, which is a multifamily room, just kind of basics, multifamily basics, how to scale your business, whether it's small multifamily, mid-sized multifamily, and getting your arms around it. Also, we do a room on Tuesdays at 3:00 Central Time, which is strictly about raising private capital. So if you're in the multifamily space, if you're looking to syndicate deals, you're in the right place this morning, as well as on these Clubhouse rooms. If I can answer any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, DM me, hit me up in the chat, or send me a direct message. But let me bring my guest in and we'll get started. Joe, good morning.
How are you, Michael?
Good. How are you, man? So you are. So this morning you're in Atlantic City. I have a great Atlantic City story. But
was it in need of bail money at any time during the
No,
day?
it wasn't in need of bail money. That came later in my life. So.
Yeah.
Hey, but I was in Atlantic City. This is years ago when I was in the construction business, swimming pool business. I was out there for a convention. I'm in my early 20s. And first time I'd ever been somewhere like that, right? Atlantic City or Vegas. And there's a guy rolling craps at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And at 5 o'clock the next morning, we still rolling craps. And all the pit bosses are standing around watching. And there's two Israeli girls at the end of the table. And the three of them are rolling back and forth, having a great time, making a ton of money. The guy came to the table with like $10,000 and went home with like $250. It was a long day. And now I'm not an advocate of that for anybody to go do that because, that happens once in a while. One of the pit bosses actually said that he lost that the week before. So,
yeah,
we split even, right?
The house always wins.
Yeah, for sure. They say if you can win 51% of the time, you're doing good.
So, yeah, I agree.
Hey, so listen here. One question I always ask my guests is one word. What best describes you personally and professionally?
I think the one word is strategist or source for lending strategy and direction and scaling. So being a source is I hope I can provide that to my network, to my circle of influence, to my power team for that matter.
That's cool. I love that strategy. That's That's really a good perspective, a good way to look at it from your end. Now, you and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of months on Clubhouse. We've spent some hours in some rooms, and I've learned a lot from you. I know that you've been in the business a while. You've got a lot of insight. Tell our listeners and a little bit about your history, your background, how you got into doing what you're doing.
Well, I'm a direct private lender at this time with Lending One division of Blackstone Capital. So we provide debt financing for residential financing, multifamily financing, new construction, blanket loan, asset-based lending type of environment, debt service coverage ratio, the BRRRR strategy, fix and flip. So we provide also non-recourse or recourse lending options. I got into lending I'm in my 24th year. And kind of got into lending because I was a former accountant and did a lot of forensic auditing and in my past out of college, and just wanted to make a pivot. I've had my real estate licenses since 1988. I also teach at Temple University at the real estate school for continuing education for licensed realtors. I also teach continuing ed in New Jersey and Pennsylvania for licensed realtors as well, providing education, creating some networking environment for them and hopefully creating opportunities. I'm also a multifamily investor myself. The irony enough, our discussion this morning on Clubhouse was on crowdfunding. So I hope you get to see that replay. It was just more of an educational piece because I am not an attorney, I'm not a CPA, and I don't want to misrepresent. And any of the opinions that we're going to discuss this morning are of mine and not of Lending One's. So I just want to make sure, if we're looking for potential predictions, they're coming from me as an individual that reviews data and reviews a lot of articles and information that's being provided to me as well.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I always tell people that too. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I just tell you what works best for me and what I've done in the past. And, whatever I say, if you need to vet it, go to your attorney, go to your accountant. So I'm glad you said that. You mentioned Temple University and you teach there, continuing ed. Did you go start that class yourself, or was that something you signed up for them to teach? Or
Well, I was part of the association in Philadelphia for over a decade, and a lot of these associations have evolved. Obviously, since the pandemic, they really don't have affiliate programs where, as a service provider, I can be like a member of. But there was a gentleman that was running the real estate school at Temple at the time, brought me in to teach some courses like 3 or 4 times a year. And it's just something I actually enjoy. It's not really the matter of getting paid. It's the matter of giving back. And that's how we obviously connected on Clubhouse. I have a club myself, which is called the Creative BRRRR Strategy Club. And we have about 6,000 followers or so. And, I had to narrow my time because time is a value, of course, and I'm working throughout the day, Monday through Friday. So I provide a Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time discussion and a 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard discussion every Saturday and Sunday. And then Shane, who we know is a colleague of mine, provides pop-ups during the week. And then James Wamba is another colleague of mine. He provides a Monday evening event discussing Texas and things of that nature through the club. So I've created some really great relationships and synergies with like-minded real estate professionals in the field.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you bring, where do you think in your space today is the biggest place that you bring value to the borrower, right? I always tell the borrower, hey, listen, don't ever quabble over a 0.5 percentage point. Go to where you're getting the value from where the person is servicing you.
So the transactional experience, I think, is something that I can extend that's a lot different than a lot of the other lenders that are, individual lenders that are out there on the front line. Being in this business over 20 years, being around for various market cycle shifts, this pivot, which is we're in the midst of a reset of a 10-year real estate cycle. I don't think a lot of individuals that have been, I would say, spoiled for the benefits of a great market the last almost 14 and a half years on a 10-year run have that insight to understanding how to pivot and strategize for their borrowers now in this market. This is definitely a different market over the past 30 to 60 days. This is definitely not something that if you just got into this business in the past 8, 10, 12 years that you've ever experienced in your career. This is definitely a market shift. Somebody like myself, I've been in during the here in this industry during the mortgage crash. I've been in the industry during 9/11. Um, I was in the industry in the early 90s during unemployment shifts, and then I was experienced as a child watching my parents understanding inflation that was like 8-9%, which they're claiming is now, which is not true. It's more like 20-25%, and rates in the double digit environment, and even gas. You had to have an odd and even license plate to get gas in the late 70s, early 80s. So I've been privileged enough to be around to see those transitions in economic cycles, and I feel that me encountering what you're trying to do, I can hopefully better scale the borrower up and strategize in the right direction in the direct private lending space, which has actually only been around 10 years, Mike. Hard money's been around 25 years. Regular banking institutions have been around hundreds of years. Private lending has carved out its own lane.
Yeah.
It's its own industry, and it's backed by Wall Street. There's about $4 trillion that's been moved over into the space this year alone. We're very heavily liquid to deploy money on debt financing. This is a very unique opportunity, even with rates moving up. For the savvier investor, this is a ripe opportunity over the next 12 to 24 months as we see a settling and some form of normalcy in inventory and foreclosures and REOs.
So what's normalcy? I mean, I always, remember years ago, there used to be those big buttons that said, "What's normal?"
Yeah.
I always have to say, what would be normalcy right now?
Normalcy is not seeing these exaggerated price inflated numbers. Listen, I'm not knocking realtors, but they're just looking at the circumstance to list properties as high as they can on the benefit of their sellers. That's going to slow down. I mean, there is listen, instead of 50 people lined up for a deal, it's going to maybe be 15 people lined up for a deal. And as this year progresses, as rates move up, guess what? The consumer is going to have less interest because the rate increases. And this is going to be more of a landlord investor market, class A, B, C rental, low income housing, anything an investor or landlord can get their hands on, primarily because the asset-based lending criteria is in the forefront of commercial financing in the residential space. And that's what a lot of people just don't understand. 50% of your buyer in the first-time home buyer space is a millennial. They might take a pass on these inflated rates and wait, where the landlord's going to step in and buy a lot of these properties and rent them back to the class A or B renter in a lot of these markets throughout the country, depending on what market you're in. Now, not all markets will be impacted the same way. So I want to say that Northeast is definitely going to be different than South or Southwest or Midwest. There's definitely markets that are going to stay frothy, and there's going to be markets that are going to have some concerns, specifically in the urban city markets.
Yeah, so I find that very interesting. Talk about this for a minute. So, I have a friend. He was, very large foreclosure attorney back after 2008, and he represented the banks like Aquin and Midland and Chase, but he represented the bank side and did a number of foreclosures on a monthly basis. He says that his business, 6 months ago, he said my business had slowed down to about 15% of what it was. And we just had dinner again a couple of weeks ago, and he said, listen, the market's changing so much that within a year from now, there's going to be more foreclosures, more opportunity than we have seen in several years. What's your thought on that? What's your read on that?
Well, you're starting to see cracks in the surface, specifically multifamily. There was four pretty big multifamily projects that were agency that have gone into delinquency that were announced this past quarter. It's public knowledge, so the locations are. One of them is actually in Philadelphia. One's, I think, in Texas. Another in Florida. So those are some signs of shifting there. You're going to see some shifting, obviously, in that short-term rental space. I think some individuals maybe might get a little over leveraged with short-term rental with the experience. And if they don't fill that that need or that room space on a month-to-month basis, does the market rent support the debt leverage they created in that short-term rental asset? And you might see a sell-off a lot of those properties because they're just not going to be able to afford to hold the property. Now, there'll still be equity in those properties because of the appreciation of the values out there. The problem is the debt leverage will not support the short-term rental income will not support the debt leverage, and you'll start seeing some of those properties selling off as these hospitality associations get their footing again, and some of these neighborhood communities get a little more. They're enforcing short-term rentals and squeezing them out. A lot of those properties are going to sell off to landlords and sell off just to the consumer base. So you're going to see some more inventory increases over the next couple of quarters. And I think there'll be an absorption initially, but then as these foreclosures come into place, how much can the public absorb that inventory?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's going to be the question. When does that absorption slow down and then inventory increases and days on the market increases?
Yeah, everything cycles, right? Mm-hmm. So you and I have been in the business long enough to know that we've seen this. But here's what I'm wondering about. Is this going to be as drastic as we saw in the last one or the last two? Is it going to just be more moderate because because the government's going to prop up some of the, we're going to have some false band-aids put on some things here. I think that it's going to prop up the economy a little bit. You think it's going to be real bad, or where do you think it's going to go?
I mean, listen, the government's printed a lot of money that really didn't exist in the first place. So we have phantom money out there right now. How long will that last? I mean, what's going to have to happen really in the classification of rentals, because rental appreciation's gone up double digits in almost every market throughout the country. I mean, in Florida alone, Miami, I think the appreciation of rental has gone up 40%.
Yeah. So listen, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
And but here's a hot button for me right now is these rental increases, right?
Yeah.
I'm seeing syndicators are putting deals out there right now where the rental increases they're showing unbelievable exorbitant amounts. And how is it sustainable? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, again, another hollow log here. I mean, they bought very thin because listen, we all make money when we buy, not when we sell. So another concern I have here with these rental increases, will that match up when their 5-1 or 7 or 10-1 ARM expires and they have to go back out to the agencies and see what rates are, and now their rates are 200 basis point difference? Does that property still support its debt service? And the investors, especially the investors into the syndication, they might have to sell off some of this inventory right off the bat. So again, we don't know what the immediate impact is going to be 24 months from now or 12 months from now. But I could tell you for a fact, we're not even touching on what the commercial mixed-use retail space impact will be with a labor force, 40% of them deciding to work from home and the other 60% looking at a hybrid environment. How will that impact the urban cities when, and wage tax collection and things of that nature? What does that look like when now in an HR letter, when you get a job, you're now allowed to work virtually. You don't have to be within 90 miles of where you live with the job. So those are massive shifts in work labor and quality of life and, barrier of entry. Like to me, wow, I'm going to move to a state where my taxes are a quarter of what I'm paying now. I'll fly in once a month for my meetings, and I'll just be on Zoom for all the rest of the sales meetings, and my production will be as good or better in my work environment. So now, and then also that company now doesn't need as much space for their labor. So what's going to happen to the necessity to commercial office parks and, is the virtual industrial type of space like these like WeWork-like environments, are they going to become part of the eat, work, and live environment where there's going to be multifamily space, some very light retail that's necessary to support the living residences, and then office space right on site. So now they never have to leave their house or apartment or their condo or their townhouse.
That's an interesting redirect, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. You take some of these old big boxes and do indoor storage, or you take some of these old office buildings that are vacant. Can you create that type of a live work environment, right? It's kind of an interesting retrofit.
Well, not all of those buildings are going to be convertible now. Do they become data centers? And how is big tech coming in and buying a lot of this commercial space? I mean, Google's made some really big announcements on Google on office space in some major cities, including New York. But again, where is the workforce moving to? I mean, it's very evident where there's been population increases in very specific areas of the country from others, and the deterioration of population in other regions. Like Phoenix had 60,000 people increase in their population in the past year. I mean, Miami, Orlando, Fort
Tampa.
Lauderdale, Tampa. I mean, you got 20% increases across the board. Where
I looked at, when we started looking at Tampa, 1,000 people a day are moving there. 1,000 people a day are moving there. Well, they have to be coming from somewhere. So if you look at the other side of that map, look at the counties and the cities. Chicago's one, Cook County's one. That the depletion or the exit of those counties is the greatest in the country, right? Because those people are going somewhere.
Yeah, so I mean, you're seeing. I don't know if anybody has noticed, but like the capital markets based on population, Philadelphia fell out of number 5, which they were in the top 5 for the first time. They were over 2 million in population. They fell out because they lost a lot of people in the past 5 years, and Phoenix is number 5, and now Philadelphia is number 6. So the transitioning is happening in the Northeast. It's going to be to me, I think the Northeast is going to be very landlord ownership enhanced, where I think it's going to be a very much more of a mixed blend in the Southwest or Midwest states, where it'll be a blend of consumer, first-time home buyer, as well as investor. And you're going to see a lot more repurposing of commercial space into residential space in the next 5 years than ever you've seen before, because these communities, if they don't make these conversions, they're going to have a lot of white elephant buildings sitting around, not being able to support the tax base to their areas.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, you and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, but the Fed said that they were going to raise interest rates like 6 or 7 times. And how many times since they made that initial announcement have they raised interest rates? And where are rates at today? Where do you see them going?
Well, I mean, in small multifamily balance programs, okay, in the past 30 days, all rates have gone up over 100 basis points. So I'm not going to quote a rate in a scenario, but I'm just going to give you like, hey, listen, 100 basis points is a big shift, massive shift. And I don't think we're done yet here. And like the 30-year fix on the conventional side closed at 5.06 on Friday, and the 15-year closed at 4.29, all pointing up 10 basis points on average. So again, commercial lending on an LLC perspective, if you're not working with a direct lender and you're working with more of a daisy chain brokering environment, you're going to see more origination costs. You're going to see higher rates. You're going to see misinformation and misquotes, because I can tell you for a fact, there's been a lot of lenders that had to rescind hundreds and hundreds of term sheets and literally turned down loans and said, listen, you could reapply, but we cannot provide you with that rate because we'll lose millions of dollars if we close on those loans. So I'm also hearing some of the regional banks are having some massive issues, where some of the regional banks haven't even filed a 10K yet because they don't know where they're going to be. They ran so razor thin during the pandemic, giving money away at 2.5%. I mean, how much money is left to give out? And I think these regional commercial lenders are going to have a struggle providing longer term amortization, better fixed models on the ARM product, because that's really all they can extend. Where in the private lending space, there's still a lot of 30-year money fixed out there, whether it's 1 through 4 residential or 5+ unit multifamily.
Hey, I just want to make a comment too. If anybody's out there and they have a question for Joe or me even, go ahead, throw it in the chat, and we'll try and get that answered on today's episode or today's show. Hey, so where do you see pricing going, right? So all these things that are happening, uh, interest rates going up, supply chain constraints, cost of goods, cost of fuel. I'm in the Midwest. Gas is, 4.75 a gallon. It's down a little bit, but it was $5. I don't know what it is on the East Coast, but where do you see pricing going on multifamily assets or real estate assets in general?
I mean, right now it's not slowing down in pricing. That's what's scary. The Fed's jacking up the rates. Inflation to me is at 20% plus. Supply chain issues across the board in every piece of the real estate industry. I attend a lot of construction association meetings. I'm talking to different people that they're providers of metal, sheetrock, wood, roofing, windows. They're like, hey, everything's out on a ship somewhere, and they're not lying. You know what I mean? Do I see improvement in the short term right now? No, I see this is going to be definitely a 24 to 36 month look at how this is all going to shake out. Um, I know, geez, I mean, to me, this is the decade of the general contractor because we have such massive labor shortages and a lack of quality laborship in the general construction industry where investors, GCs were latching on to investors to invest into these deals. I think it's going to be the other way around because the only individuals that are going to be able to understand contingencies in general construction bids and are going to be in the forefront of taking down some of these bigger, nicer deals that are going to be available out there is going to be the GC. The GC is going to end up being the personal guarantor in some of these situations because they're the individuals that's going to dictate where the pricing and the level of completion is going to be important most in a lot of these rehabs or burr strategy or repositioning of multifamily or single family through four family.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamics right now. I know that we closed out a multifamily deal back in December, and it was like 116,000 a door when we went in, and today it's about probably 130. So that's how volatile the market is, how the market's been moving. And, hey, listen, the investors that are involved in that deal are going to do, we've blown away our rent growth expectations already. And in just a short time, we've already we're outperforming. So, investors are going to do well in this deal. So, and I think that there's some of those deals to come out there yet too. I believe that as we watch this market over the next several months, that there's still going to be some good deals out there. And I know go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I think you got to evaluate the ones that bought heavy in the past 5 or 10 years and bought thin and see where they're at and just evaluate and see where they might not be able to pivot in this, or they don't have the experience to pivot with a new rate to support the newfound debt they want to keep that multifamily. You might start seeing some multifamilies that were bought 5 or 7 years ago going up on the market because the rate that they can get now than they've been at over the last 5 or 7 years, a completely different number.
Yeah. Now I know you're in the you do some multifamily investing yourself, right?
Correct.
And tell me about what type of assets you're looking at today, what your underwriting looks like. What would get you really excited or keep you awake?
Uh, for my personal endeavors,
Yeah, yeah,
so it's definitely not in the market where I sit. I think everything is bloated, and I think everybody thinks they can get top dollar. I would never buy any of the properties that I own today back. If they were listed, I mean, I would. You know, um, am I looking at out of state opportunities? I'm looking in areas that not everybody's running to. I'm looking at more of the consistency of cash flow, not worried about the appreciation as much as I'm really a heavy cash flow guy. So I'm looking at areas where the cash flow is extremely strong, not worried about massive appreciation on the value in the back end. I want just consistent income, hopefully a consistent deferred maintenance in front of me, where I can also identify the proper out of state power team to facilitate that asset as well. So I'm looking in areas, Not really Southwest because everybody else is looking there. I'm looking more Midwest. I'm looking at New York State, um, not New York City. There's some markets I like up there. I do like the Midwest. I like the Ohio's, that area, Tennessee's, Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma a lot. I think it's a really strong market. I've been following a lot of individuals discreetly to see how they're doing in those markets because everybody claims they're doing unbelievable. You could be doing unbelievably bad, or you could be doing unbelievably great. So I'm just watching and waiting. I am. I did sell a lot of my properties off about 3 years ago. Did very well with that, and I maintain a core portfolio that I have, and I'm just waiting and watching to identify because I still think the shoe's going to drop somewhere. It doesn't drop in an area where I'm comfortable to leverage equity today.
Yeah, and as much as you and I know that it's going to change, and not just us, but a lot of our peers are saying the same thing. People aren't really holding back. They're still moving forward. And I always say, listen, I've been in the business long enough to know that I've made money in good markets, bad markets. When there's a Democrat or a Republican in office, it makes no difference what the environment is. There's always a deal out there, and you just got to look and know what you're looking for, underwrite conservatively, and pull the trigger to the best of your ability. I always say, right, there's two times to plant a tree, right, Joe? 20 years ago or today. So
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch. I'm excited because again, listen, we have midterm elections coming up in November. There's
yeah,
definitely going to be some massive shifts in some markets. Will it change my evaluation of how I look at a property? No, I still look at it a certain way. Look at the cost benefit relationship. I look at the deferred maintenance. I look at again who's managing it now. Why is it being poorly managed? Why is it being managed very well? I mean, I always look at the pros and cons. Who's the tenant makeup and what's the bedroom mix? I mean, is there things I can cut out some fat to make it run a little leaner and look at a better? I'm all about cash flow. I'm not almost concerned as much of doing value adds. I'm looking at more. Hey, listen, if I hit the ground running with this asset, can I shift anything in that income and expense for the betterment for myself and the money I deploy?
hey, how do you vet your boots on the ground today? So if you're going into a market, you need a property manager. What are three performance indicators that you really look at to vet that sponsor
I'm boots
or
on the
that
ground.
manager? I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm boots on the ground. I'm gonna do a lot of background work up and above what they're willing to provide to me. Obviously I'll get somebody to do Nexus Lexus on them to make sure to see what their background looks like. Those accessibilities are important. I want to see how many deals they've done, or are they actually transactional themselves? I'll do some verifications there as well. I'll look at their team and their makeup, and I'll look at their backup as well. Because even with the properties I'm managing right now, I actually have my own bullpen of service providers up and above what the property management company offers to me. Because not that I don't trust anybody, I just don't trust anybody. So I have to
Yeah.
kind of, again, I like to have a good solid second string and like to have the responsiveness. So the areas that I'm looking at right now, I'm going to once a month and spending a couple days understanding the market, meeting professionals, grabbing coffee with various people. I'm not going to do everything over Zoom. I'm going to be live in person to meet and greet. And that's the thing when being a direct private lender. That's another important thing. When the lender is willing to fly out or travel to see you in person, that says a lot. I mean, that's somebody being boots on the ground in my position. I think is important because a lot of the direct private lenders have their home bases and they work from wherever they work from, and that's fine. And they're not big on boots on the ground. I like bootstrapping. I like being like I was in Richmond, Virginia this past week. I was in New York State this past week. I was in Delaware. I was in Pennsylvania. I was in New Jersey. I'm going up to New Hampshire next month. I'm going to Rhode Island next month. I'm going to be in Boston next month. I'll venture to different areas. One, to be able to say, hey, yeah, I do understand your market. But two, people appreciate that live piece of the pie that you can't really grab onto in a Zoom call like this. Like if there was something where there was an event of magnitude that made sense for me to visit, hey Mike, when's the next big event? I'll come out to Chicago. it's a flight, you know what I mean? But the cost benefit relationship to build that with somebody is invaluable.
Well, let me just answer that for you. So I think it's July.
Okay.
I don't know the exact dates, but there'll be 500 or 600 people at that GOB network.
I'm a kind of a shy guy, so I'll do my best if you invite me
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I'm sure you're shy. So it'll be it's going to be a great event, though. There'll be a lot of people. I'm going to have the opportunity to speak, and there'll be some other big brand names. So it's going to be a great event.
Let me know
Um,
if there's an opportunity to collaborative sponsor anything. Let me know.
Yeah. Oh, they're definitely. I'll tell you what. I'll put you in touch with April, and you can talk about that because I know that there's some sponsorship opportunities and things like that. So
Yeah, I love visiting all these type of investor-driven events. Like I'm going to be taking a sponsorship with the Ohio RIA in November, and it's like 1,500 people, but they're all over the country. That's to me, that's money well invested.
right, right. Yeah, absolutely, for sure, 100%. So so let me just let's just talk about a couple other little things. Tell me what you like. What are your most favorite technology platforms? Here's what I had a guy on my show last week, and he said, "Look, if it's not in the software, it doesn't exist." And I think that Jack Welch said that years ago at GE. He said, "If it's not written down, it doesn't exist." So, what's your most favorite software platforms that you like to use that
Well,
benefit you in your business?
well, we use Buildium. I'm not that big of an owner. I mean, I have a little over 100 doors. I think Appfolio is more for the bigger players that have more than that type of doors. I like Buildium. I like the interaction. My property management and I interact through that. It's very easy for me, at least. Having QuickBooks of your own and handing that information off to your CPA, you got to definitely have a CPA that understands real estate and multifamily investment. That's important, and obviously having a solid real estate attorney that understands the laws of landlord tenant in that area wherever you're buying and selling, because that's all going to interact. Because I could send numbers and sheets to what my attorney, my CPA, and they get their head around it very quickly.
Yeah,
So having the right software that fits what you're trying to do is important.
yeah,
I agree
absolutely.
with you.
How about how do you handle stressful situations? Look, we're in a business that's fast paced. That sometimes things come up. It can be stressful. How do you handle the stress in your life? What do you do for yourself?
Well, that's a great question. If it was before 3 years ago, it would be a different answer than now. I take a very holistic approach. Um, I'm very health conscious, and I fast actually close to 19 hours per day in an intermediate fasting. I'm on keto, so I have a lot. My clarity has to be at always peak. So I'm a stroke survivor. May 15th will be my 3-year anniversary. It's all about your health and taking care of yourself and your mental consciousness. Because if you're going to get sick in two spots, it's going to be your brain or your stomach. So you need to address both. I'm down currently a little over 130 pounds. I go to the gym 5 days a week. Definitely, I do my meditation in the morning and my meditation in the evening. Um, I spend really special times with my wife, who's the love of my life. So those type of things you have to be able to say and put out in front of you. And if you're not walking the walk from a healthy perspective, you're not going to be successful long term. You don't take care of your health. And I lost control of my health, and I won't allow that to happen again. But I feel like my performance is at 110% now than ever in my past 20 plus years career. So
Yeah,
your health is everything, and I think that's a reflection to who you attract. Because I don't believe in bad or good luck. I believe in true karma. So who you attract is, and who you put around you is how you treat yourself, health wise and mindset wise.
yeah, for sure. Hey, I didn't know that about you. Well, good for you. I'm glad that you survived. And sometimes people don't take the initiative after an event like that to take care of themselves. And my hat's off to you because that's a true example. So, um, thank you. And you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, hey, what are your daily disciplines? But it sounds like you work out, you eat right, you meditate or pray, and so. Anything else that you would add to that?
I'm always reading something, whether it's a book, whether it's an article, whether it's I love different people's opinions. Everybody's allowed to have them, and that's why
Yeah.
we are who we are in the United States. It's a wonderful democracy to have those opinions, and I like to read all of them. And I like to listen to influencers, inspirational influencers more so. I mean, it's nice to hear real estate inspiration, but you know what? I really enjoy more the transformational energy type of
Mm.
individuals because they allow me to think deeper and review data more and love what I do. So I was in regional banking for 20 plus years. I've been in direct private lending for the past couple of years, and I love what I do. So it's not really work; it's something I love doing. It's more of
Yeah.
a very well paying hobby in a sense of things I get to do all day, every day.
Nice. Hey, so do you have a favorite thought leader?
When I went down with the stroke and I needed to rehabilitate, one of my closest friends started turning me on to David Goggins, and
Mm.
it was extremely. He's a badass, and
Yeah, sure.
I enjoy his directiveness. There's no sugar whatsoever. It's
Yeah.
coffee served black, and
Yeah.
uh, and that's how I drink my coffee now. Where I was putting all kinds of craziness in my coffee now, it's when you're in a foxhole and there's bullets going over your head, there's no half and half or sugar. So you're going to get to drink coffee black or black. And
Yeah.
I like how David puts that out in front of you. I do also enjoy listening to Les Brown, and he's been on Clubhouse with his son, and very inspirational. That Georgia discussion presentation, How to Be Hungry, it brings tears to my eyes when I get to listen to that time to time again.
Yeah, that's interesting. If I would love to. I'd love to listen to that because I don't know that I've ever really listened to it. If you have a link and send that to me, that'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
if you look up Les Brown and Hungry, it's on there. It's
Okay.
right. It's on the
Les
top of
Brown
YouTube.
Hungry. Okay.
Yeah,
I
wonderful.
love Les Brown, by the way.
Ah,
Years ago, I used to be in network marketing, and he was a big network marketing speaker.
yeah,
Him and Zig Ziglar, right? So,
yep.
um,
The
but I don't
Zig,
know that. Huh?
the Zig, man, he was good. He
Yeah.
was. I mean, he's a legend. You know what I mean? Brian Tracy, Dan Kennedy. I love the timelessness to what they've have
Yeah.
provided to professionals such as ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you know, my good friend Moose is a Napoleon Hill trainer, and from the Napoleon Hill Foundation,
Hmm.
and is on Think and Grow Rich stuff. So, I get a good dose of that, but I've always been in that mindset, right? Always listen to books and tapes. Hey, what are you reading right now?
Uh, I'm ready to pick up the Goggins book again.
Okay.
And reread it. I do enjoy that book. There was a book that I read a couple years ago. It was called The Silent Warrior or the Quiet Warrior, and Nick Nolte actually was in the original movie, and then he was in the second movie. They didn't really do well. It was more of a mindset inspirational. I'm going to reread that book as well. I'm going to take a look at that book again. I like to reread some books, and I also have done. I'm in uh, a IOSIS intermediate. Like, it's kind of a therapy for the brain. So I'm doing some
Okay.
neurotransmittal stimulation to my brain, and then that's about 12 sessions I want to be doing. Get some real clarity in my brain waves and start picking up some. Maybe I'll go to a Tony Robbins event. I'd like to see him live.
He's
We haven't
awesome.
seen. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's somebody that I feel is to me is directly inspirational. So that's somebody I plan on going to see in person, probably sometime in the next 12 months as well.
You know, if you get a chance to do his Firewalk, I think it's at the Ultimate Power Workshop, Unlimited Power Workshop that he does. But he does this Firewalk thing. I did that a number of years ago, and listen, he says he says, "Hey, if you can walk on fire, cold calling's nothing." So, and that was something that always stuck with me because that's how I always build my business is cold calling, right? So, but he said, if you can walk on fire, cold calling's nothing. So,
And I just want to make sure I got the right book that I'm gonna. There's a whole series. It's called The Peaceful Warrior. The
oh,
Peace.
peaceful. Okay.
And my wife turned me on to it. But there's a whole series of books. Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Um, Peaceful Warrior. There's a bunch of different things. And Nick Nolte was actually a star in the first one and then the second one, and he played two different roles. Um, it's definitely something that I would keep in mind. It was very inspirational.
Netflix deal?
I think it probably went to Netflix. I would bet it did. But
All
I would
right.
look up Peaceful Warrior.
Hey, how about your favorite restaurant? I know you travel around a lot. Where's been your favorite restaurant, favorite food?
Well, I mean, I'm obviously I'm 100% Italian, and my wife is 100% Lebanese. So we try to find that happy middle. I probably have found and have encountered more exotic food and different type of food over the past almost 13 years of my life with my wife. And I mean, we love our Italian food. And listen, I'm dying to get back into New York to go to Little Italy and hit like one of the Italian restaurants like Luna or Carmine's or something like that. Do I like some? I'm a big fan of BYOBs. So
Okay.
I love picking my wine, but and I love picking a good Italian restaurant. Thankfully, I'm very blessed. I'm in New Jersey, which I think is the epicenter of all Italian food in throughout the country. And I think we have also a Portuguese Brazilian flair here that is far by none fantastic, and a Latino food. I mean, in Philadelphia, you got some great authentic Chinese food, like the food that they serve to people in China, like food. There's this restaurant, I can't think of the name of it. They have two menus. They have the American menu and they have the Chinese menu. And I love that. I don't want to even look at the American menu. I just look at all the Chinese menu. And the food is unreal. I've experienced some really great Russian food in the Philadelphia market, some Russian influences and Macedonian influences. So we've had some wild experiences there as well.
So you're a foodie, is what you're saying.
I am in training with my wife. She is the ultimate foodie. So I follow her footsteps. And then we're always very keto based. So we're always trying creating different foods that are keto friendly.
Cool.
And because I only get to eat once or twice in a day, so I better make the most of it,
Yeah, right.
because of my fasting.
Hey, so if when you come to Chicago, make sure that we get together because there's a great little neighborhood Italian restaurant we'll go to that is like has the best gravy and the best pasta dishes. And it's just one of these places that's got a dozen items written on the chalkboard, and you know,
Love that.
been
Those are the
there,
best kind.
been there forever, right? So love that place. So we'll have to go there. Joe, how do people get a hold of you if they want to talk with you?
Mike, my direct number is 215-290-5108. That's 215-290-5108. My email is my first initial J, last name Scorese, Scorese, at lending one. That's at lending, then ONE.com. So J Scorese at lending1.com.
Hey Joe, I appreciate you and your knowledge. You have a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge, and you brought that to the table this morning, and I thank you for that. I'm going to hang out with me backstage for a minute. I'm going to move you to the green room and go ahead and just say goodbye to everybody.
Mike, thank you for this opportunity and this time.
You bet. Hey everybody, that was Saturday Morning Live. Thanks for being here. We're here every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central. Remember that we're live on Thursday morning too. Typically on Thursday morning, we're going to have somebody local, a Chicago entrepreneur. If you know anybody who wants to throw their hat in the ring for that, please, by all means, email me and let me know who that is, because I'm always looking for an entrepreneur, a leader, somebody in the Chicago market that will bring some value to the listeners on that Thursday morning show. But today was awesome with Joe talking about the mortgage market, talking a little bit about multifamily, where the market's going to go. If you haven't listened to this or need somebody or want somebody to listen to it, it'll be on the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page as well as on YouTube. So follow us for the most relevant content every day and on a weekly basis. Follow us on the social media platform that you find where you get the most value from. So I will look forward to seeing everybody soon. See you next week or somewhere throughout the week. If I can answer any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, email me, call me in the office, or get a hold of Joe. Joe is very transparent and has a lot of information, can help you with your lending needs. We'll talk to you soon. Everybody have a great weekend and enjoy